My name is Willy Bolander. I study influence, persuasion, and leadership in selling and sales management, and I teach people how to sell. In this podcast, we'll talk to some of the world's top sales leaders and see what we can learn from them. Welcome to the Sales Lab.
We are here with Melissa Bychinski.
Bychinski.
I'll get it. Melissa is with RS. And Melissa, I appreciate you being here. You're going to tell us kind of what is technical sales. We talk a lot about technical sales here at the Texas A&M College of Engineering. And we're finding out that it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So we want to find out what it means to you and what it means at RS. So can you start by kind of telling us who you are and what role you have?
Yeah, so Melissa Bychinski. I am the Director of Business Development for our Value-Added Solutions team here at RS Americas.
This content is brought to you by the TIES Sales Showdown. That's the Technical, Industrial, and Engineering Student Sales Showdown, hosted right here at Texas A&M University. We have over 200 engineering students taking sales classes every semester and a growing minor program in technical sales. These students are smart enough for STEM and savvy enough for sales, and the TIES Showdown allows them to demonstrate their selling skills in a role-play competition where industry partners, like you, serve as judges and provide them coaching feedback. If you're hiring for technical, industrial, or engineering sales roles anytime in the next couple of years, this is an event you can't miss. You can learn more at tx.ag/TIES. That's tx.ag/TIES. Hope you can join us.
You've been with RS your whole career, or what did you do before? How did you get where you are?
Yeah, so, it's always that funny story of where you start versus where you end. So in college, I was pre-law, and I was determined to be a lawyer from about the age of 9 because I followed everything my big sister did, which she didn't go into law either. So I ended up pre-law in college with a business minor, or business major, and then just continued to go through college. Life changes. I didn't end up going to law school. So I found myself working in an architectural sign shop as a project coordinator, fresh out of college. And from there, I answered, and I'm going to date myself, but I answered an ad on monster.com after about 5 years of doing that and learning a lot and really enjoying that space. Wanted to move more into the sales role because I came from a long line of salespeople. So I started my first inside sales job at a company called Newark Electronics. So I spent almost 20 years there. And then I went back into manufacturing for about 4 years just to kind of round back out into manufacturing, and then found myself here at RS Americas about just over 2 years ago.
Perfect. And tell us about RS. The name doesn't give much away.
It does not. For those who have been around for a while, the name Allied Electronics and Automation resonates with more people, but we did rebrand about a year and a half ago because we were operating as RS in the rest of the world. So it was just to make it a cohesive unit. So RS is a distributor of industrial and automation products, but we also have everything ranging from PPE to electromechanical to almost anything you can think of. If you were to walk any manufacturers or food processing type floor, you would see our products everywhere, in the box, on the floor, in the clean rooms. So we have over 700 manufacturers available. And I'm part of the newly developed solutions team, where we're really looking at how do you move from selling a product off the shelf to providing a full suite of solutions to a customer.
I might ask you to paint that picture in a little bit more detail, right? So usually when we think about distribution, we think, yeah, you're moving widgets from one place to another. You got a warehouse, you deliver it to people who need widgets. Okay. But what you're saying with the solutions is, okay, we're going to keep doing the ore distribution, right? But we're now also going to recombine those parts into components, or what exactly? How is that still distribution, or how do those link together?
And you're moving off the shelf parts to a customer. You're really good at moving boxes, right? So, but a lot of times our customers need more than that. When they're buying one part, there's all the halo effect of products that go around that or with it. So the solutions helps bring that all together. When you think of, a fan, it usually has a lead wire coming off of it and a connector crimped on it somewhere. So, you have to buy all those components individually, and it's about selling that full solution to the customer because they may have 3 different vendors today that are selling them the 3 different parts. And they don't understand that with 700 manufacturers, in some cases, we can supply that full solution.
Okay. So you're just kind of looking into the future, a few steps, and saying, well, they're going to take this and use it in this way. We can add some value to them by going ahead and putting these things together for them, and then probably charge a better price than you could for the individual pieces.
Correct. Absolutely.
Perfect. That's good. So we know a little bit about RS now. So let me ask you what technical sales is to you, to RS. What is technical sales?
Yeah, I mean, and I think you nailed it. It would be different by everybody who's done this, would have a little bit of a different answer. But, for me, technical sales really means, there is selling the complex technical product and service. So when you think about what we just talked about with distribution, selling products off the shelf, we don't want to just sell an off-the-shelf product. We want to have that halo effect. It's about providing solutions to many applications across many different vertical segments. And it also means having a deep understanding of all the capabilities, in our case, of RS Americas has to offer, in tailoring those discussions to be a problem solver to your customer.
Okay.
One of the most critical... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
The most critical aspects to me is to understand those customer needs, position your offering to that particular customer's need by being curious, listening, developing a deep understanding of their pain points, and customizing your conversation aligned with the offers that you have to address that customer challenge. You then become their problem solver to free them up to what they're hired to do, whether it be, some examples are increased uptime, being able to go to market faster, avoiding unplanned costs, and overall just increasing customer satisfaction. Those are some of the few areas that I think of from technical sales when I'm out meeting with customers.
We sometimes try to differentiate technical sales from non-technical sales, or, try to paint that picture for students who are trying to understand what we're talking about, right? And I guess we could think of, a lot of retail sales sort of situations as non-technical, right? A customer comes in and they need an object, and you help them find the object in the store, and you're still helping the customer, you're still providing a service, but you're not necessarily bringing a lot of brain power to bear to deliver that the thing that meets that need, right? Whereas in this case, okay, yeah, you're gonna have to think through all the different products, all the different manufacturers, all the different things that you could be drawing on to provide a solution. Could you walk us through a typical sales process? So from the moment you engage a prospect to the moment that they take delivery of whatever you've sold them, how does that happen? How does that unfold?
Yeah, and it can vary, but, if you look kind of ideally you start with the demand creation. So I guess to the prospect. So you've found the correct individual that you want to have the conversation with, or a correct individual who's having a pain point within the customer. And then you start with demand creation. So in my mind, the most important thing is to understand where they're at in project life cycle. So are they in the beginning? Are they in the planning phase? Are they mid? Are they at the end? So you then tailor that conversation as far as what a typical sales process looks like based on that. So for this purpose, I'm going to talk about at the demand creation. So you have the prospect, you understand their pain points, you've helped them with the products that they may need as far as what they're looking to do. So are they building a cable assembly? Are they building a full panel build? And then you work with them to source the products that they need. So you make product recommendations. Because we have 700 brands in our space, we try to be a little more brand agnostic, and we give them the solution, whether it be a circuit breaker, whether it be a fan. And then from there, you go in, or when they start to need a little bit deeper support, we have experts. So we start the technical conversation from a high level, but we then have experts, whether it be electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, designers, to help them through that next step of the project once you've kind of identified what the need is. And they can be a little more brand specific, still try to remain a little bit more agnostic, but it can vary from, you just get the couple parts that they need together to we do a full drawing and assembly drawing for them. Or we help them redesign their existing drawings. So there's a lot of different paths it could take, But ideally, in most of the sales processes for me, having gone from inside sales to outside sales to sales leadership, is being at that demand creation, because then you're at the front end and you're influencing what goes into that product or that final assembly. Once we understand what that full solution looks like, if we're doing the drawing, we complete the drawing for them, we send that over. We typically build a first article with all the components selected based on the bill of material that we've helped them build. We send the first article for approval. Customer comes back, says everything looks good, it worked well. And then we continue to build the full lot that they need for that particular project.
And so when you're approaching a prospective opportunity, are they typically already doing business with RS, but more on the straight distribution side? Or are these people sometimes that you don't have any relationship with already?
Yeah, great question. Typically, it is somebody it's more of an account management where we typically have a relationship with a assigned customer base. I mean, there is always leads that come in that could be the latter, but it's typically more of an account management where they have a assigned base. They're going to the same, handful of 20, 30, 40 customers that they may have assigned to them in a territory.
So you, I think, are probably coordinating this effort of finding out what the customer needs, what types of things you can bring to bear on their problem. What other specific people and their roles are involved in this? Are you having to tap on the shoulders of finance people or engineers or, who are the players?
Yeah, and it depends on what you're working on, right? But if you're working with, say, a maintenance manager to solve something down on the floor of, a food processing plant, you're typically working with him, but you do need to work with the manufacturing engineer. You do need to work with, a lot of times you can't forget procurement. I've seen it a lot in my career where you have a deep relationship with the engineers or the manufacturing team, and they may send a requisition up to be bought because they don't actually do the purchasing. And if you don't have a relationship with procurement, they'll send it off to whoever their emotional favorite is. So you absolutely have to know the procurement and sourcing organization. In some cases, if it's a very high dollar complex sale, you'll have to know the financial controller and have that relationship as well. Or if you're doing a large cost savings project, that is where you want to influence the financial controller on why the cost savings is extremely important, will benefit them.
So often when we're trying to boil the idea of technical sales down into distill it into simplest form, we'll say, well, it's sales that involves some kind of complexity. So I'm hearing from you, there's complexity in the number of manufacturers and parts and, the technical specifications and what's available. I'm also hearing that there's kind of complexity in terms of the relationships that you're having to manage and maybe well, you tell me, are there different sort of personas, or do you have to adapt your style when you're talking to these different people? I mean, a finance person is interested in very different things than a engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you go talk to an engineer about a specific part or a specific problem that they're running into, obviously that is a little more black and white, where when you're talking to the financial controller, you need to lay out the whole total cost of ownership, the cost savings plan, how it's going to impact them. Is there any downtime? What is the cost of the engineering time to have them redesign things? So you do have to adapt, and you have to understand the financial impacts of what you're trying to do internally, because if you do offer a cost savings project, there can be a lot of redesign time in there. So does that offset it? So you have to have those open and transparent conversations with the financial, and same with procurement, because they care about that as well, as an example. And maybe if you're working with engineering, the director of engineering will probably want to be involved in that conversation as well, where the engineer itself is not likely going to be as engaged in that conversation. They just want it to work right and go to market faster, because there's a lot of pressure in today's world to go to market fast.
So there's some complexity, there's some technical aspects to it. Is there anything about this job that is not technical?
Yeah, there's a lot of coordination, like you said, there's a lot of coordination. That's not exactly technical. But working with procurement is not going to be as technical. For them, it's a different lens. It's how do you support them from a vendor reduction standpoint? How do you support them with cost saving? A lot of the industry calls it VCP, which is cost saving initiatives, whether it be on a certain commodity, whether it be on the whole bucket of spend, whether it be just on their test equipment, they'll pull out different things that they're working towards taking cost out on. It's not really technical. You're just a lot of time looking at their spend commodities and how can you help them reduce their vendor base is probably one of the bigger things. In every procurement person, sourcing person, supply chain person I've dealt with throughout my career, I've said, my first question to them is, what are your initiatives? Because then you tailor your solutions to meet their initiatives. Is it, number one, cost out, number two, vendor reduction? Then you start having those conversations. But sometimes there's some new initiatives in there that pop up. Every time we wake up, there's something new going on in the world. So they could have a new initiative that suddenly we're not aware of that you want to tailor your conversation to. That's probably one of the top most not technical aspects of this job, but it's an important part of the job to keep close to them and make sure you're bringing value to them.
About what's the length of a sales cycle for you? I mean, do you tend to find out about a need and you can put something together and within days or weeks it's done, or is it a little bit longer than that?
So we are in the process of learning that as a business because RS Americas has always been an off-the-shelf distributor, right? So we have a product, we sell it, we ship it same day, or we wait for it to come in from the manufacturer and we ship it because we're out of stock. We are transitioning as a business to, like I said, to this product and services business. Those life cycles tend to be a little bit longer. They can vary. I mean, some of them can go pretty quick if it's, we're building a cable assembly that already has a drawing and the drawing is actually done well and done right, and there's not a rev missing. That can happen in a couple of weeks to, there's some larger projects that we've been working on with some control boxes and other stuff that can go 6, 8, 12 months because sometimes you're doing revs. And then there's other circumstances in a past life where I had a medical application that it took 18 months just to get the quality paperwork done with the PPAP. So, it can vary, but I would say on average, if you average all of that together in our world, taking out just the same day shipments, it's probably in the realm of 2 to 4 month sales cycle from beginning to end. And
let me ask you about somebody taking a role like this at RS and technical sales. What types of knowledge, skills, or abilities would be really beneficial for them to have? What should they bring to the table? Before any training, before any additional experience, what do they need that are kind of the right ingredients to get started and be successful?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a want to go in and meet new people. I mean, that's an important piece of this is you have to want to understand people and how they think and what their roles, how they're thinking that particular role. Technology, you have to have an interest in technology. And then you have to start to develop those skills around the industry. It's a very unique industry. It's very fast paced. It's a lot of new technology coming out. Like I said, with 700 branches, every single day, there's probably multiple new technologies. But you have to have the skill to be able to noise and focus on what's important to that particular customer versus every new product coming out to you. You also have to have the multitasking skills. It's huge because you are working on a lot of different things with a lot of different customer types, day in and day out. And, curiosity is a skill you have to have. You have to be curious. You have to walk around a panel shop and be as excited as if you're walking around SpaceX. And show that customer the same love for the industry, even though, you're walking around SpaceX going, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. But, and you just have strong communication skills. I mean, I stress that a lot with my teams over the years. It's, even if you don't have the answer to the customer, let them know you're working on it, give them an occasional update because we work in a very competitive industry. And if you're not giving them answers, somebody else is. So just make sure I always just plug them and say, I had a call this morning where I'm still waiting for to connect with some people internally. And I said, hey, Justin, I just wanted to let you know, we're working on it. What's your drop dead date? Let's set a timeline. Because he sent a couple of follow-up emails and I'm like, I'm working on it. So communication and proactive communication is huge.
Do you find yourself working, are your interactions kind of virtual and over the phone, or are you in people's sites, like you talked about walking around the panel shop? If you were to break up your interactions in percentiles, where are you when you're doing these sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, we've moved to a virtual world. It's not my favorite. I would say it's a mix. I mean, the nice thing is you can have quick virtual video conferences now and solve some quick problems that before you used to have to take a flight to go on site, look at it, understand it, come up with the solution. But really, my heart is being at the customer. I love being with the customer, at the customer, seeing what they're doing. As salespeople, I find most salespeople who have worked for me, or when I was a road warrior, as I like to call it, I love to be at the site. I love to understand exactly what's going on. I learn by seeing. I learn by being there. I don't learn by, watching a video as much or reading a book. Reading a textbook. I learn by being there and talking them through it and hearing mentors of mine talking to the customers. And just starting to mimic that and come up with my own ideas. So in short, that's my long-winded version of I love being at the customer site because I think it makes a big difference whenever possible.
And how much of what percentage of your interactions do you think you're getting to actually do that?
Probably more in the 30-40%. Now, if you ask one of our local salespeople, it's different. There's probably more 80-90%.
Okay. Yeah, because they're just hoofing it.
Yes.
Nice. And okay, we've got a few other questions here that maybe diverge from just the context and the definition of technical sales. Well, this one's close. It says, what's one thing that you think people get wrong or misunderstand about technical sales?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it depends by what you're selling, right? But in our world, I think a lot of people misunderstand, and I've seen some people come into our industry and look at 700 lines and think I've got to be an expert on those 700 lines. For me, it's a huge misunderstanding. It's impossible to learn the technical prowess of all of those lines. But, what you do is you start to pick up things by commodity or product as time goes on. And even more importantly, you have the experts. Like I mentioned earlier, we have double E's on staff. We have MEs on staff. We have designers on staff. We have the manufacturers and their whole applications engineering world and their technical support. So to me, it's just not thinking if you came into this industry, you would have to understand. I go back to my first couple days on the job and I had to read what is a volt, what is an amp, because I didn't even know that coming into this, right? We called it the binder training. It was long before all the online training, but over time, I just started to learn some of the attributes of the product lines, and then you start to be able to see it as you're walking around.
Now, would somebody with an electrical engineering, you said double E, I want to define that just in case somebody listening doesn't. So somebody with an electrical engineering background, would they have a leg up if they came into a role like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think they would understand some of the applications quicker. So I do think even a mechanical engineer would have a leg up just based on some of the products that we do sell. But it's not something what somebody with great commercial acumen can't come in and learn pretty quickly as well.
Well, and I think that's one of the things I love about this technical sales area is that it is this balance between the hard skills and the soft skills, which is really good. It tells me that the world isn't being necessarily run by fast talkers or backslappers. I think of backslappers because it's my days in insurance, and I say it with love because I still run into some of these folks at different events and things, and they'll slap me on the back and go, "Oh, yeah, the backslappers." You have to be able to talk, you have to be able to communicate and persuade, but you have to know a thing or two about what you're saying. You have to back it up with evidence. You can't just make an excited claim and have a large industrial opportunity go through based on your enthusiasm. I hope, usually.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's key to also not be afraid to say, I don't know, I'll get back to you, because you're right. I mean, you have to have something to back it up, but I came into this world not technical at all. I still wouldn't say I'm the most technical person in the world. I don't have an engineering background, but I can talk. And I always like to use one of my board level stories. So we had moved into at a previous life, we had moved into doing rapid prototyping and some of the board level stuff. And, I'm talking to these engineers because I learned all the buzzwords, so I go into these engineers and, they think I am an expert in board level. And then they start talking to me about getting to the fourth level of the board. And then you're kind of like, I've used up all my buzzwords. But, that's when you say, I don't know the answer to that, but I will it gives you another great reason to see the customer, right? Or call the customer back. You get them on the phone with the expert who can help answer that question, or you get the answers and you come back to them.
Well, and there's always been value in connecting the dots, we sometimes talk about knowledge brokers or relationship brokers, right? I'm the generalist that knows enough to know where to go to find the answers and who to connect with who and all of these things. Are there any common selling practices that you disagree with? Anything that we get wrong in sales?
Yeah, I mean, from my lens, more of I think there's a couple of things. I mean, I look at it a little bit more from a sales manager lens, sales leadership lens.
Sure.
One of the things I think we get wrong when we look at some of the overarching of performance in particular is, are you talking to the sales rep about what is going on in their account package? As an example, you can easily make a decision. We talk about being data driven, and I love data, and I love using revenue, margin, all profitability as the data, but sometimes you look at sales performance page and you say, if you look just at that, you would maybe make a good or bad informed decision. Mm. For me, it's getting in touch with that sales individual and understanding from their lens and allowing them to tell you the story about what's going on, whether it be positive, whether it be negative. Could it be a windfall? Is it one customer driving that, a steep growth? Is it, you're in a vertical oil and gas, talking to people in Texas, right? I mean, oil and gas is so cyclical. So I think that's a common selling practice from a sales leadership lens, which probably isn't what you want to know. The other thing I think is a lot of people come in and they come in with a presentation. They come in with a sheet of paper. They come in with a white paper and they just give a dry presentation. It goes back to my earlier comment about curiosity. I think a lot of times we either get nervous, we want to prove our value very quickly. But I think I always love the statement that I learned from my father when I went into this role is he who speaks first loses. So to me, it's like, go in and let the customer speak and tell you all of what's going on in their world, have the curiosity, and don't just always lead with a death by PowerPoint or a piece of paper with a bunch of writing on it. Have that full conversation. Those leave behinds are nice as a reminder, or sending them the email of the PowerPoint as a reminder. But I just think it's the gift of talking to somebody is something that's really important.
Well, I think that ties into something you said earlier about, being able to cut through the noise and realize, okay, I've got so many parts and components I could talk about. I can go in a completely different direction and start talking about developing a custom solution. Why don't I just slow down and ask some questions? Mm-hmm. I bet the customer will say something that will take all that noise and just, funnel it down into something digestible. I don't know if it's always like this, but it is frequently like this, where somebody will buy something for a reason or two. Not 30 reasons, not 100 reasons, but you win out, you look the best on a couple of things that turned out to be the critical determinants, right? And that curiosity will I think help you do that job, right? It's not I don't think an innate ability to cut out the noise. It's I asked questions and I listened, and that helped me cut out the noise, right? Do you have any stories about your best day selling or your worst day selling? Obviously, a lot of our students go into sales, and we all know that in that first day, week, year, decade, that there are some pretty weird things that can happen. Can you regale us with your horror stories?
I can. So I can give you an example of both if time allows. So, your best day selling, I always compare it to golf. If you're a golfer, golfing is a sport you will never, ever completely master, right? But it's that one shot that keeps you coming back. So, to me, it's the same with the best day selling. It was like when I started in this, when I started in my first outside sales role, it was like, man, those first 6 months, I was like, whew, I called my boss, and there was a couple of times I called my boss and I said, I think you picked the wrong person. I'm just not getting things where I need to be. And, I go back to, it's about the listening and learning the capabilities of your company and tailoring it to that individual, because I was going in and I was meeting with mechanical engineers and electrical engineers and I was taking our 60-page PowerPoint deck and I was giving them every slide. And so I left there going, wow, when my boss comes in, why are these meetings so great? But when she leaves, I see a deer in headlights, because I literally had a mechanical engineer go. At the end, when I said any questions, they're like, but I realized I didn't take the time to figure out what their role even was, right? So I wasn't having that curiosity. But as I got past that, I'm giving you a little backstory, but as I got past that, I started working with an engineer who was building a medical device, and he needed 57 of these units around the ring of the medical device to hold the product in from vibrating. And this was big. I mean, my average order value at that time was probably about $4,000. And, I worked with him, and this is the one that took about 18 months to get the quality paperwork done. But I worked with him for probably a good 12, 13 months and going way back in my career. But it was my first 7-figure win. And it was repetitive business for the life of that particular model of that particular medical device. And I enjoyed that business for a good 5 years or so, until the sourcing organization said to the engineer, does it really need to be clear anodized? Or did you like clear anodized because it was better than maybe if we went plastic? I couldn't compete with the plastic version, but, it was that first huge, I made a difference in. That's when you realize in distribution and looking at the, the medical segment in this particular, you are helping change the world. Sometimes you think you're selling a product off the shelf, but I helped be a part of that solution for a life-saving medical device. And that's when you step back and you go, wow, not only did I get the big win, I am making a difference.
Yeah, that's great.
So worst day selling. So, things always happen. I was out and I had my boss in from London, and we were doing a whole lunch and learn for a group of engineers. And I would get so nervous when he would come in, because I was young in my career, and, did the lunch and learn, had a great meeting, had a great outcome, walked out of the meeting with the leftover food, because this particular customer, you couldn't leave the food behind. Like a lot of times you leave the food behind and everybody goes scarfs it up. So I had to take all the food out. So I was pushing the cart out and my phone rang. And I answered my phone and I turned around because it was windy. And as I turned around, the food of Chipotle, well, it was Qdoba. I don't know if you have Qdoba, but it's Chipotle, was rolling down the parking lot with cans of black beans and chicken and queso. And it hit a curb and it flew all over somebody's car.
Wow.
So, and my boss is doubled over in laughter as I'm like,
of course,
on the verge of sheer embarrassment. And so we ran back in, got towels, we're cleaning the car. I took all of the spilt pans, beans and all, dripping all over, put it in my trunk just to get out of there, and had to go sell my car because we could not get the black bean smell out of my trunk. But those become the days that you start to tell the story years later, going, it was one of the worst days of my life, but it's now the funniest.
Indeed. Well, and you survived.
And I survived, and my boss
we
was
can
not
survive an
wrong.
awful lot. It's okay. Most things are okay.
Absolutely.
But that's interesting, because I actually bought a car several years ago, and it smelled like black beans, and I could never figure out why.
Was it a Nissan?
Yeah, for sure. Indeed. Well, that's that's a messy one. That's a messy one. Good. Well, any other thoughts on technical sales, or young people thinking about starting a career in technical sales? Any big concluding exclamation points?
Yeah, I mean, to me, not ever thinking about going into sales, but thinking, watching my dad, my brothers, my sisters all get on airplanes and travel in suits with their briefcases back in the day, thinking that was the coolest thing ever. They're always on the road. They get to see new places. What I would love to tell people, and I've done a couple of mentorships with some college students, is that the possibilities in this career are endless. I mean, and the coolest thing to me is I've been in this, again, I'm going to age myself. I've been in this industry for a couple decades plus. Gosh, I learn something new every day. It is not a monotonous job. I mentioned SpaceX. I have been into some of the coolest places I've ever seen in the world. I thought originally Tesla was the coolest place I ever saw in the world until I went to SpaceX. And before that, it was being able to go up the back stairs onto Universal because I had a meeting with the sourcing team at Universal Studios. And they're like, oh, yeah, just go up those stairs, have lunch, walk the park. I could never sit at a desk every day. And so this is my personality with, but I knew from the get-go I was never meant to sit in an office at a desk all day, every day. And just getting out and seeing what people are working on, seeing the rapid changing of the technology, being a part of that is just so exciting. I mean, in this industry is so exciting because, sometimes people look at distribution and go, oh, they sell a capacitor or they sell a semiconductor. Not that we sell semiconductors, but I have in my past. And it's like, yeah, but by the time you've designed in that semiconductor, it's already out of date, so just the rapidly changing and seeing the world change is super fun. And just know the possibilities are endless. I mean, I started inside sales. I went to on-site sales at a medical device manufacturer. Then I became a national global account manager. Then I became a regional director. Then I became a global head of sales. And I've seen so much. I've experienced so much. I've influenced so much and learned so much. And that's what I love is the constant learning. So I recommend it. If you're even thinking about it, I highly recommend it.
Well, I think that's all the questions I have. We'll call it a day. And you mentioned being behind your desk all day. I've been at my desk all day. I probably need to get up and go do something else now. So
same.
That's it for this interview. I hope you got something valuable out of it. Of course, if you did, be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on whatever app you use to listen. Also, share this with your colleagues and friends, and let's continue to have a deeper discussion on all things related to selling and sales leadership. See you next time in the Sales Lab.